Let's start everything off. Good morning, everyone. Come one, come all, of course. We are here live and in full effect at Wacif, the Washington Area Community Investment Fund. I would like to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. I promise you the information that we're going to present to you today should and possibly may change your entrepreneurial life, okay? And so I have on the line with us today the illustrious, well sought after, the good doctor as we call her, Dr. Shauna Yeldell, the Director of Lending at Wacif. Shauna, if you can say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. Thank you for allowing us to share a little bit of our knowledge and experience with you.
Yes, yes. And then also we have on the line with us Mr. Rasul Shair. He is a small business advisor here along with me at Wacif. Rasul, if you can say hi to the people, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Glad you're all able to join us today. Looking forward to engagement and conversation with all of you. Once again, great time being here. Looking forward to the conversation and the discussion.
Cool, thank you, Rasul. All right, so we're gonna start off today. We are going to present to you cracking the credit code, okay? And we're taking control of your business credit. Now, what we wanna do just to start things off here, we wanna kind of get a gauge as to who is on the call with us. It's very important for us to ascertain your level or your stage in the business life cycle, wherever you are in terms of being an entrepreneur. So if you have your screen in front of you, there's going to be a small poll. I'm going to shoot that out to you right now. Of course, Wacif is what we refer to as a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution. And for our purposes here, we like to know who, in fact, has heard of CDFIs. And we'd like to know, because we're interested in understanding what all the community knows about CDFIs thus far. So really quickly, if you can let us know if you know what they are and what they do. That poll should show right in front of you right now. If you could just select whether you've heard of a CDFI and if you know exactly what they do and what they stand for, that'd be great. Give that another 10 or 15 seconds or so. Just quite simply, have you heard of CDFIs? Do you know what they do and what they stand for? All right, I think that's going to be about, let's see, that's a good number of respondees.
Yeah.
Okay, and so as we can see here, of those who answered, about, everyone can see that here, a bit over half have never heard of CDFIs and they don't quite know what they do. And so to answer that, each of us will have our spin on it a bit, but I'm going to let Shauna go first. And of course, Rasul, if you'd like to chime in there, and then I'll round it out at the end there. So Shauna, if you can proceed.
Sure, absolutely. So CDFIs, as Lou has mentioned, are Community Development Financial Institutions. And some time ago, the Department of Treasury established CDFIs because it was widely recognized that not everyone is bankable, as we know, because of credit, because of collateral, for any number of reasons. So the Department of Treasury established CDFIs, and we are a part of that group of CDFIs. We also, our mission primarily is to provide access to capital in places where traditionally it's been very, very difficult for entrepreneurs to access capital. So that's really our mission. And that is why we really exist, is to provide capital, and with capital, opportunities to grow businesses, to create job opportunities for those in our communities, because as we know, we are more than likely to hire people that are in our community than those that are not. So we want to create every opportunity that we can. So that is really the genesis of community development financial institutions.
Indeed, indeed. Rasul, didn't know if you wanted to have something to share there.
No, the good doctor, as always, did a really bang up job of answering it. So I have nothing else to share. So I think she laid it out.
Wonderful.
And Lou, if I could add one more thing, there is an organization, it's a nonprofit organization called OFN, Opportunity Finance Network, and that network is composed of CDFIs throughout the country. So if we all have geographic boundaries as CDFIs, and our boundary is here in the DC market, but if you know or have family members that are located in other parts of the country, you can access a map through ofn.com. And that map will show you where there are other organizations like Wacif in different parts of the country.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And so what I'd like to add to that, of course, is simply this. We are here for you. Everyone knows, if you take a look at the statistics out there, just in terms of who and how frequently people are approved for business loans, for commercial financing, at the bank, you know, the bank where you put all of your money, where you place all of your deposits, right? The folks who hold on to your cash, your capital, and use it or a multiple of it to lend to other companies out there. We know there's an 80 to 90% chance that if you apply for a loan there, you will be declined, okay? And of course, we know historically speaking, this is even more prevalent in areas where there are predominantly African-American. And we wanna make sure that we are addressing the need out there. So if you are a minority, a woman, if you are a person that may not have the best of the best in terms of your financials, it is critically important for you to understand where to go and how to utilize these organizations to help your entrepreneurial ambitions, okay? So what we're gonna do today is to just kind of further along our mission, our path, and as you can see in front of us here, our mission is showing to you, okay? Promoting equity and economic opportunity in underserved neighborhoods in Washington, D.C., in this region since 1987, all right? And so we know that, of course, it is critical to address how it is you are to be approved for commercial financing. And so why is this so important? As Shauna mentioned earlier, to address things that are systemic and some of those statistics out there, if we're talking about even the unemployment rate, we know that people are more than likely going to be employed based on relationships, those whom you know, those who are your family, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you don't know the person who is the employer, so to speak, the person who's in business, that entrepreneur, right, then your chances of being employed are often going to be way, way, way less than the other groups in comparison. Okay? All right. So with that, the mission of CDFIs and Wacif, we're going to move forward here. Okay? Let's talk about, excuse me, the three pillars that Wacif stands on, okay? And we have inclusive entrepreneurship, community wealth building, and equitable economic development. Again, we stress the word equitable economic development, okay? And as we expand on those three pillars and that broader topic, we're gonna talk about business credit. And here's the thing, guys, okay? Most times people, and I say this from a person who's been in the commercial lending space for combined over 10 years now, actually more than that. We often see where when people think about their business credit, when they think to address it, when they would like to, it's too late. It's when you need the funds. It's when you're up against the wall. The opportunity has already presented itself where you need that capital, the ramp up capital, the capital to move in, to take advantage of that new contract, the capital to fulfill that new purchase order. You know, that's when you start thinking about it. But at that point in time, when you need the money, you should have started 12 months ago. Okay. And so now is the time to start. And first, you have to know what to do. What are the steps to take? More importantly, how do you get there and what are you going to use as a guide? And let me tell you something, okay? We're actually saving you about $4,000 right now because in the private marketplace, that's what you're going to pay for someone to do this for you. You can do it yourself, DIY. do it yourself. You can do it. It's quite simple. It's quite easy. We're just going to lay that out in front of you. Okay. And I want you to really think about where you are at this current point in time in the life cycle of your business, what's coming up, and how you may need to address what you foresee in the future. And just to talk a little bit about that from the underwriting perspective, from the top down, I'm going to have Shauna to just very quickly address what she sees on a daily basis in terms of timing and the importance of addressing your business credit right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to back up a little bit, my role here with Wacif is Director of Lending. So our lending program allows us to go up to $250,000 for any individual borrower. And Lou is right on point, because a lot of what we see is reactive versus proactive. People are coming to us in a hurry because they've gotten this contract, and now, you know, they need working capital so that they can fulfill this contract. And that's great. We want anyone that needs our resources to approach us, but there's only so much we can do if you put us in a reactionary position. And in most cases, we can't be as responsive, you know, if it's reactionary. So Lou's right on point, and being proactive, looking ahead, doing planning for not only acquisitions of contracts, but how will you package your capital? You know, and part of what the discussion is today is one part of an overall plan that you really should incorporate. There's business credit through credit cards, there's lines of credit, there's term debt, and they all have a place. So packaging those really requires planning. And so I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get your financial partner, whether it's Wacif or whether if you are fortunate enough to have bank financing, get them involved early on so that it's not a situation where I got to have the money and I got to have it by Friday. So
that's right. That's right. That's right. And we're going to cover, of course, a broad range of topics on a monthly basis coming up. That's going to give you the information you need to make those wise decisions while you develop your business credit in terms of what types of other alternative means of financing are out there. And so just stay tuned with us, folks. We're going to bring you some really, really, really great information. Okay. Now, very briefly, just so that we can understand who you are and where you are in the life cycle of your business, I just have a few questions, a quick poll out there in terms of how long you've been in business and at what stage you are. And this will help us to tailor the information to you throughout this seminar, okay? So I'm gonna launch that for you really quickly. If you can just select those answers there. Again, all answers here are anonymous. No one will know who you are and who answered what or how they answered any question, okay? So simply, how long has your business been in existence? And then what are your average annual revenues, okay? Now, of course, we would like to see that everyone here is, active, but if you are a pre-venture or a pre-concept, that's totally fine. Even better, we want you to get started. And if you are in business and you have begun to generate revenue and move along throughout your business life cycle, we want to make sure that we're able to address where you are and kind of pick up on those finer points as well, okay? All right, so we'll give this about 10 or 15 more seconds just to get some good data here. And I think that is about good. All right, so there we go. So it seems as though we have about a third, and a third. Less than a year, 3 to 5 years, and more than 5 years. That's a pretty diverse group, folks. Pretty diverse group. Okay. All right. So to hand off here, what is business credit and what are the benefits of business credit? I'm going to pass the mic to Shauna. Shauna, feel free to go ahead.
all right, so let me pull my screen up
Okay.
so that I can share.
And one thing, just while Shauna is pulling her screen up there, guys, if we can remember, we want to welcome all questions. Please have a pen and a pad with you just to jot down things you may think about, things you want to remember. And of course, we will have a section for answering questions, and those will be handled via the chat there, okay? So please just keep really good notes along with the wonderful information that we're going to present to you today. Please take notes on that as well, but also ask those questions in the chat box, and we will address those at the end of each section, okay? Thank you.
Absolutely. So business credit, and again, as we mentioned previously, this is part of your overall plan for business credit. So we're going to just talk about one aspect of building and establishing business credit, but this is not totally an exhaustive list. And the other thing I'd like to mention is because of COVID, things are constantly changing. So if we present information today and you find out that it changes later, just know that because of COVID, there are any number of responses that financial institutions find themselves having to adjust to. So business credit, just as it sounds, is another name for, really establishing credit in the name of the business. That's what that means. And this is based on the business's ability to pay. And what that means is the business will have to keep accurate records, because what you'll be reporting on in order to obtain this business credit is information similar to what Lou posed in the poll just a minute ago, and that's your revenue, expenses. And part of the reason banks, organizations like CDFIs, loan funds, ask for that information, they ask for historical information as well, is because we want to be able to establish a baseline of revenue and have some expectation of what that company will do going forward. So it's very, very, very important that one of your essential partners is a CPA, bookkeeping, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sure we'll be having some more discussion on that as well. But you need to keep accurate and timely records for this purpose and any other credit that you want to pursue. So what we're talking about today is the business credit that you can obtain from retailers such as Staples, Lowe's, Sam's, Costco. And it's very important to go ahead and establish that, because it gives, of course, a track record of your spending, your repayment, and puts you in a position where you can leverage someone else's capital to do the things that you need to do for your business, right? So approval limits tend to be higher on business accounts versus personal accounts. We've all received communications and letters and solicitations in the mail about business, not business, personal credit. But what typically happens is, depending on where you're applying for credit, Lowe's, for example, those limits tend to be much higher, because if you are pursuing credit for business purpose, you want to make sure that you have the amounts that you need. So per the SBA, that data indicates that the credit limits are usually 10 to 100 times higher than consumer credit. And you can start very simply, whether it's a solicitation that you receive in the mail. Typically, once you establish your entity, if you're establishing an LLC, which I hope that those of you that are early stage, that you will do that, protects your own personal assets when you create an LLC. For those of you that are more mature and have been, I think I saw 5 years or greater, if you don't, or have you not pursued business credit, you certainly want to do that. And here's just a simple way, or you've seen applications before, I'm sure, for your personal credit. That's just a sample. So when done correctly, the business credit can be established and built without the benefit of personal credit. And there is no personal credit on some business accounts. That's not true for all, but for some. And there is, again, an advantage to not using your personal credit combined with your business credit. And along with your personal credit history, there is a business credit history that's established once you receive one of these cards from the issuers that we mentioned previously. And this gives the business owner double the borrowing power, because they can receive credit without impacting their personal credit history or credit profile. Business scores, similar to personal credit scores, are based on the repayment history. So it's the repayment history for those credit cards that you've established through the business. And in some cases, you can establish a positive business credit history much faster than with your personal credit score, FICOs and things of that nature. So this is an example. Dun & Bradstreet is probably the most popular business Paydex score. And so this gives you a scale of how your business credit is evaluated. And what you want, of course, is to be closer to 100. So expect payment may come early is where you'd like to be, but you don't want to be so early that you're not allowing that capital to work for you and your business. But prompt payment gives you a score of 80. So that means as soon as the due date, the payment is made. But as you can see, the longer it takes, the lower the score. So.
Hey, Shauna, just real quick, a quick pause here. We've been having a couple of questions. Folks have been asking about having access to the presentation. It is being recorded, and so at request, we can share that later. So any questions about availability, this will be available once this is finished. So it is being recorded.
Yes, thank you. And so personal credit scores, you're familiar with FICO, and the three that are typically averaged are based on 5 factors: your payment history, utilization, and then the length of time within your credit history, accumulation of new credit. So all of that is combined to give you a FICO credit score, and that credit score can range between 350 and 850, I think is the highest. Business credit is a little bit different, of course. The business credit can be obtained, of course, as we said, without the owner taking on a personal guarantee. And that means in cases of default, which we hope that doesn't happen, then it's not the business owner's personal assets at risk. So business credit benefits, to go on with that, when a business owner applies for business credit, the business credit is reviewed. And not having a positive business credit or business credit at all could result in you being declined. No surprises there. Anyone can access your business credit, and they don't necessarily need your permission. And that's similar to personal credit as well. Part of the reason you receive those invitations and solicitations from, Chase or whomever is because they can do what's called a soft pull. And the soft pull tells them, this is a person that has a score that exceeds a certain amount. So depending on whatever they're looking for in their analytics, maybe it's 650, maybe it's 700. Well, if they have a 700 credit score, I'm comfortable with sending them the application. So that the same thing is true for anyone accessing business credit as well. The only difference is they can see a lot of detail in terms of your employees and revenue, past payment performance, things like that. And of course, those of you that are early stage, you definitely want to get an EIN number. It's very easy to do, accessing the IRS website, and you can establish an EIN number, and you want to build credit from that. And typically, credit access via credit card typically is unsecured, which is why it's so credit driven. You're not looking at financials in most cases. You're looking at really just the credit score of the business and or the credit score of the person if you're issuing a personal credit card. You just need a solid foundation, which is creating an entity that protects your personal assets. So LLC or S-Corp or even a nonprofit. You just want to make sure you're not trying to combine the two. And the other benefits are, again, if you handle the business credit responsibly, you oftentimes will see an increase in your credit spending limit. So you may start with 1,000, but if you handle your business credit responsibly, you could just receive in the mail or via email, that amount has gone from 1,000 to 2,000. So it's definitely something to, have as a part of your overall access to credit plan. And it's one that you can do very, very easily, assuming that you have all the foundations there. So unfortunately, I have to leave the presentation early because we are having our, we approve loans through a committee, and our loan advisory committee meeting is today. So I'm gonna have to jump off early. So I want to pause there and ask if there are any questions that I can answer before I have to leave.
We do have a couple of questions, Shauna. I think one of them, the question was, how long does it take to establish good or solid business credit?
Yeah, well, it takes, I mean, a minimum of 6 months, because you want to see 6 months of positive repayment history. You can definitely ask for an increase before that time, but it's highly unlikely that you'll be given an increase, and a year is better. So a year of positive repayment history will definitely benefit you and put you in a position where, if you have accurate documents, because what can happen is they can ask, well, we'll consider an increase, but just share your financials. So you got to have your financials in a position where you can share those in order to get an increase in your credit.
Second question, how are you able to increase Paydex? Yeah, I think there's they said the level that is at 80, and that it's been like that for a year now.
We're gonna go over that also in the second.
Okay. So he'll go into more detail as far as that goes. And you know what I would say too is to be proactive, and if there are errors that you find in your credit history, you know, be proactive and get those corrected. You know, if you made the payment 3 days before the due date and it's recorded as the due date, you know, don't be shy about reaching out and correcting that, because it all impacts. And Lou is gonna get into that a little bit later. Did you see other questions, Rasul?
There's another question that says, do you have to register with Dun & Bradstreet in order to get a score? I
think Lou's going to talk about that as well a little bit later.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. He'll get to that later.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing, Lou, so you can pick up, and I'll hang out for a few more minutes, and then
All right. Well, thank you, Shauna.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let's see, we're gonna pick right back up here. Okay. And here we are. 1 second. And we are, yeah, okay. All right, so how is it that we are able to build business credit that's linked directly to your company? And what we're really talking about here is your EIN, your employee identification number. And of course, all of us who have established a separate entity, even sometimes if you have a DBA, doing business as, established a separate entity utilizing an EIN number, your employer identification number. And we want the credit to be linked to that specifically and alone, without having to use your social security number. And so that's really what we're getting at today in terms of establishing business credit. And we want that to be separate from your personal credit. And so there are many products out there, of course, many types of loans and lines of credit where you will have to sign as the primary guarantor, okay? But of course, depending upon the contractual language in that product, you want to make sure that it is only reported on your business's credit profile and not your personal credit profile, though you may still have personal liability in case the business defaults, so to speak, okay? And that's just the lender's way of making sure that their risk is lowered. So for some products, depending upon the amount of money and the type of product you're utilizing for funding, that is something you may not be able to get around. However, for your trade lines, credit accounts, credit card accounts, and these things that can go up and beyond a couple $100,000 for you, it is possible to have this business credit linked to nothing but your business's EIN number. And it's very simple to do, but there's a step-by-step process that you have to complete. And as always be very truthful and transparent on your applications to apply for business credit, wherever that may be. So let's get right into it, folks. All right. So it's important to remember a business starts building credit in the same way that a person does. Okay. And so just, right when you turn 18, right, and you start getting those credit offers in the mail, you know how folks, some folks, I've seen folks to spend up a bunch of money on their credit cards and have to file bankruptcy after college. And, as soon as you turn 18, boom, it's there for you. With business credit, as soon as your company is established, and we'll talk about how to establish it correctly, you will start to see these offers. And of course, you can, these companies are marketing to you, but you want to make sure that you apply to the right types, or for the right types of credit lines, the right types of credit cards at the right time. Okay. So let's make sure that we understand, just where to go first and how to march along and move through the process. Okay. So making sure that you get approved for the credit cards that are reporting to Dun & Bradstreet, mainly the business credit reporting agencies, will be important. Okay. And the business is going to you have to make sure that, of course, you are making those payments in a timely manner, especially when we start talking about credit cards. Okay. Those from Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. And so as we move along throughout the process, we'll see how to get to that point and to raise those limits so that you can get yourself into a position where you can pay for goods and services and items, and sometimes get yourself out of a crunch whenever you need to. Okay. Next, the perception that lenders, vendors, and creditors, and often your potential business partners will have of you, okay, will come from your business credit. And so a lot of times, even if we're in contracting and we're considering bundling, we're considering joint ventures, we're considering bringing on new partners, we're considering all of these things that can grow our companies, a lot of times before people will associate themselves with you as a supplier or as a partner, they will want to check out your business credit, okay? So before applying for business credit, you must make sure that you are going to meet all of the standards and the eligibility guidelines that that particular creditor will be looking for, okay? And just to note, there are over 20 credibility points that are necessary in order for you to be approved and have to have a strong, credible foundation to move forward with certain products, okay? Next up, all right. Now, we see this a lot, and the different variations of your name and the address and all of these things that are associated with your business. It is very important for you to make sure that everything that lists your company's legal name, list it in the same way. That means with the Secretary of State, on your bank account, and on your applications that you use to apply for certain goods and services. Everything is the same punctuation, the same spelling, the same spacing. Make it as easy as possible on yourself. If someone wants to run a cross search on you, they will be able to find all of these, or to pull you up in the system to see that you do exist, and to be able to see your history so that they can, of course, assign the correct number of points to you in terms of what should be assigned to your particular business, okay? If you are using a DBA, make sure you use the entire business name. So if you are ABC Construction Company doing business as Bronze Steel, then make sure you have the entire name there, just not Bronze Steel, okay? ABC Construction Company, DBA Bronze Steel is what you'll want to list on everything, just so that there's no confusion and folks can always find you. Okay, let's move forward here. Next one. All right.
Hey, Lou, just real quick. Yeah, hold on real quick. We're getting some really good questions from the participants. And just a note, all Q&A, all questions, please put those in the Q&A. That way we can keep track of them. Don't put them in the chat, because if other folks are making comments, we don't want to lose your questions. So all Q&A, please put them, or all questions, excuse me, put them in the Q&A section. That way we want to get to all of those questions, and that way it allows us to be able to track those. So please put them in the question section, Q&A. Don't put any questions in the chat. So I just want to quickly know.
Some of that's my fault because I think I may have referenced chat initially. So yes, please, we'll go back and see those, of course, in the chat, but moving forward, everything in the Q&A section, just to make it as easy as possible on Rasul, and so that we can make sure we get your question answered. Thank you, Rasul.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Okay, so you can build business credit with almost any corporate entity type, okay? Again, that can be a DBA, a sole proprietor, an LLC, corporation, S Corp, limited partnerships, even nonprofits, okay? Building your business credit will be crucial to making sure that you can secure the right types of financing and relationships going forward, okay? Also, if you are just starting out, okay, I want you to pay particular attention to how, of course, you will be asked to complete applications. And I'm going to go through this coming up in the presentation, but there may be certain stipulations regarding how long you've been in business and whether or not they want you to list your social security number, et cetera, and always try to do it without your social security number first, okay? All right, so of course we want these entities to be totally separate, your business credit and your personal credit, okay? And of course, if you are truly a business and you have history, revenues, and taxes that have been filed, because that'll be addressed coming up, you will have certain applications that will require you to list your prior year's tax returns, tax history, your revenue history from the prior year. Make sure that your accounting has been kept separate, and so that requires you to have a separate bank account, okay? And to make sure you track all of your revenues separately from personal, and make sure that things are not intermingled, okay? All right. Now, whether or not you have employees, okay, of course, you have to have the EIN number. And in order to have your EIN number assigned, nowadays, it's extremely easy for you, okay? You can simply go online to the IRS's website and you can apply for your EIN number. Very easy, and it's fast. In the old days, you had to call in and do this over the phone. And I think that you still may be able to do that via the phone. However, during the age of COVID right now, of course, you can imagine the wait times are going to be absolutely horrible, though I think that you still may be able to get someone on the phone just in case going through the online application would be a bit taxing for you, okay? And you're going to use that tax ID number on everything associated with your business. And of course, you want to make sure that this is listed on the bank account, okay? And you have to double check behind your banker when they open that business account for you, just to make sure that all of these things are listed in the correct way. I say that because I was listed in, I worked in banking for a long time. And of course, I know that errors are made, okay? And sometimes, depending on the product and depending on the bank, instead of going back and being able to just simply correct something, they may have to open a new account for you. And sometimes that takes away from your ability to establish a history with that particular account, okay? And so just make sure that everywhere that your business is required to be on file, they have that EIN number. And again, that stands for Employer Identification Number, also known as your federal tax ID. Okay, your business address. And remember, always keep a file of where your company is listed and what addresses are on file. It's very easy. Some of us have offices. We move the office. It may be simply down the hall to a larger office or to a smaller office. You may have a UPS PO box account address, and then you move into a brick and mortar location where you have a physical office address, okay? You may have all different types of addresses out there, but the ones that really, really count, okay, must be a deliverable physical address. And it counts against you, unfortunately, okay, if in fact it shows up as a home address or your home address, okay, if your home and business address are the exact same, okay? And of course, PO boxes sometimes are even disallowed from being entered on your applications, or UPS addresses. So make sure if you are a home-based business, you can procure a what we call virtual office address that does not need or doesn't have to be listed as a PO box account. Okay, and so there are plenty of services out there. If you do a simple Google search for a virtual business address, that will pop up for you, and you'll be able to see exactly how those addresses appear and how they're registered. And you can do some background work in terms of calling that particular location to see how they are designated. Okay. And just remember, we're talking about this from the standpoint of an underwriter or a creditor looking at your application and making sure that you pass the litmus test in terms of being moved forward into the levels for approval. Okay. Now, as we discussed here, we have address only options out there with your virtual address, virtual business address products out there. Okay. You have, of course, where you can have your mail just delivered, or they can send it to you. And of course, you have the virtual addresses where they will provide for you phone numbers, a receptionist, your meeting places out there. They have several of them throughout the Washington, D.C. area. Okay, and if you need time to reserve, you can do that also to go right in and meet with someone to give yourself that professional look. But the most important thing is that it appear as a true office address, separate from your home address, specific to your business. All right. Also, your phone number. Many folks overlook this, okay? However, it is vitally important. Have a different phone number from your cell phone or from your home phone number, okay? There are plenty of apps out there that can be utilized nowadays, rather it's, in Ring Central, Line 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where you can open that account using your business's information, not your personal, okay? And have a phone number specifically assigned to your company. Underwriters and creditors will search that phone number to see who and what it is assigned to, okay? If it's not assigned to your business and it can easily be found, it will count against you, okay? 800 numbers, 888 numbers, 866 numbers, 833 numbers, all of those are great. It's a huge sign of credibility, okay? Now, additionally, the perception is that you do a large amount of business, that you're well established, et cetera, not only in the eyes of your creditor or underwriters, but in the eyes of your customers as well. Okay, so it's cheap to do. At most, you may pay 20 or 30 bucks a month for this. I think I even saw an option out there recently. I think that GoDaddy has a nice line assignment, second line type of option for people. I think it may bring you 120 bucks a year, or maybe $10 a month. Okay, but they are available. Just make sure that when you register that phone line, it's registered the right way. Your business address, and EIN number. All right. Now, within or for your online directories, it's going to be, of course, great if vendors and lenders can find you. Okay. That 411 directory in Yelp, the yellow pages. We want to make sure that you are registered again with the right name. If you are a DBA, have the entire name spelled out for you, and make sure that the address is listed there as well, and that it's easy to find you. Register with the proper online phone books. In what I want to draw attention to here also is your Google listing. Make sure that if someone Googles your phone number or your business name, that you claim your Google listing, and that your phone number, business name, business address, and your website all show when someone looks up your company. This is exactly what lenders, vendors, and creditors are going to do. Okay? All right. A cell phone or a brand new email address even will be flagged, okay, as unestablished, and that you are a high risk, which ultimately results in a decline, okay? Make sure that we have the phone number and your email address and I'll cover that with your email address belonging to the company and the domain of the company, okay? It's okay if you have a business card or something like that with your personal cell, but make sure that the business specific phone number will be assigned and upfront with everything that you do. Even the last option here, just having that line, this is often a cheaper option, just to forward to your cell phone can work out. So you may not have to have a different line, a different app, a different soft phone, virtual phone on your computer, voice over IP, but instead what you can have is just a simple line that forwards to your cell. But if someone looks up that particular telephone number, it registers and goes back to your business, okay? This is what creditors are doing. They're searching for this when you plug in your applications, okay? Fax numbers, I know they're antiquated. Who uses a fax anymore? Believe it or not, it's still a sign of credibility, okay? You don't have to have a fax machine. That's not what we're talking about here. There are plenty of options. And of course, you guys have customers. You know, you have clients who don't like to use email. They still want to receive their documents, their contracts, print them out, physically sign them. They don't want to use DocuSign, and they don't want to use some of your more, e-sign products out there. They want to be able to physically see it and fax it back to you sometimes, of course, depending on the age and the comfortability of your customer. But also, if you have that fax number listed, it brings to you a different air of credibility because, of course, we know that the more customers you deal with, the more you're going to have a fax line, because if you don't, you're going to lose out on some business, okay? There are e-fax options out there. You don't have to have a landline running through your house. Of course, you can utilize plenty of e-fax online fax number options out there. Just make sure when you register that fax number, be sure that it's registered in the business's name with the business's address and EIN number. And of course, when you have an online fax, and someone sends something to you, it's just going to come right to you in your email inbox as a PDF. Great product, I recommend it. All right, now creditors will research your website, okay? Credit providers will take a look and see your site today. They can also go back and take a quick look at how your site may have looked in the past, okay? They want to make sure that the proper industry agrees with what you've listed on your application. Many times our companies may do several different things. Make sure that your company website displays exactly all of the veins of business that you're in, okay? Make sure that that domain has a security token on there, HTTP, okay? Or HTTPS. We wanna make sure that when someone goes to your site, they're not flagged with this is a potential a spam website or something that may steal your information, and it's because you haven't purchased your SSL certificate to secure your website. And wherever you host your website, make sure that you can buy that security feature just so that you can pass the test for Google and Yahoo and Bing and those search engines where they don't flag or warn visitors before hitting your website. And that's the same thing it will do, of course, to an underwriter, and of course on a lender on their computers. Of course, they have very, very sensitive information for many different people. So they won't even touch your website if they see some type of red flag like that, because of course they don't know what may be on the other end of clicking on that icon or that option that may compromise the information on their computer. So the SSL certificate is of extreme importance for you, okay? Also, having a website, period. You gotta have one, okay? If you don't, there are some very inexpensive options out there for you to have one created. Even if it's one page, you need to have something. And with that domain name, you want to make sure that you're utilizing it wherever your information is going to be asked for on your applications. Okay. Okay. Now, with your email address, one of the things that we see that often folks don't pay attention to is that they're using Google or Yahoo or Hotmail or MSN or AOL or Verizon.net email addresses, and they are representing their companies. And this is a red flag for lenders and creditors because it doesn't speak to credibility and you're being established when your email address, if you're abccleaners.com, it should be lou@abccleaners.com. It speaks to your having more of a air of professionality and where you deal with, or you're in the business, so to speak, and you're doing things the right way. Okay, it may not make sense to a lot of us. However, it does make sense to creditors and underwriters because, of course, they are looking for those who are the least amount of risk when it comes to advancing capital. Okay, very, very easy to do, very cheap to do. Make sure you check it out. Even if you don't want to log in and use that email address all the time, perfectly fine. You don't have to. You can simply set up a forwarding address. Okay, so I can set up lou@abccleaners.com, no problem. Okay, but what we'll do is have that email address forward to my Gmail account. And so that way I can also set up my Gmail account to send out email correspondence using my lou@abccleaners.com, depending upon how it's set up with your email service provider. And so no one ever knows the difference. Okay. All right. With that here, Rasul, I have covered quite a bit of information. I just want to stop and take a few questions if they're applicable to what I've already covered.
Yeah, sure. Matter of fact, we have a few questions here. I think a number of them are in regards to the material you covered. The first one we have here is your business credit affected by what you owe and how much your credit limit is established?
Okay, so that's a two-part question. Is it affected by what you owe? If you are late on your payments and depending on the creditor, and we'll talk about that coming up here, of course it's affected. It really comes down to whether or not you're making timely payments. Okay. And what was the second part of that question?
It says how much you owe and how much your credit limit is established.
Okay. And so also with the first part of that question, if it's a regular credit card, then you have a minimum payment. If it's a net 30 credit line or credit account that you have with a supplier, then of course that has to be paid off prior to those 30 days. So, you know, it just depends on whether or not you're making good payments and quality payments to satisfy the entire debt that has been incurred throughout that month. And of course, with regard to your credit limit, that's generally based on the creditor whom you're dealing with and their algorithm for approving new clients and how many points you have built up based on your entire credit profile for the business. Okay, and I'll kind of get more into that as we go along.
Yeah, another question we have is how do you check with Dun & Bradstreet for your score?
We will cover that coming up.
Okay, right. Is your business? Okay, another question is all of these speak to some degree the material you've covered, so I'm just going to go through these as well. Is your business credit reported to all three credit agencies?
No. So generally speaking, Dun & Bradstreet and Experian, and I'm going to cover that coming up here, are really what you have to worry about.
Okay.
Your DMB profile is public, and I'm going to cover that with you. Your Experian profile, generally, they have the greatest amount of market share when it comes to commercial lending right now. They use a hybrid score between your personal and your business credit, just to make sure that, you know, it's a red flag for commercial lenders if we have a owner who has great business credit, but they're behind on their mortgage, or they're behind on their car note, because, you know, of course, in those types of cases, or if you're about to be in foreclosure, you probably will take any amount of money that you get your hands on and save your home. It just makes sense. And the funds that are being expressed or advanced to you, the proceeds from that loan are to be used for business purposes only. And so they will combine those two. So if you're looking at what credit bureaus or what credit agencies or reporting agencies are the most important, it's not like they don't report to TransUnion, you know, and Equifax in the same way. But for Experian, because commercial lenders are really heavy and Experian has the lion's share in the marketplace in terms of underwriting, or for credit checks, they are using that product along with Dun & Bradstreet, and I'll talk a bit more about Dun & Bradstreet coming up.
The next question, if you have poor personal credit history, how do you get to business credit? How do you get your business credit established?
Poor personal credit history?
Yes, if you have poor personal credit history, how can you get your business credit established?
Yeah, so they really are totally separate, and we're going to discuss how to apply for business credit without using your personal credit, so it really shouldn't be an issue, okay? If you do have personal credit, poor personal credit, then we do recommend that you, of course, just, shore up those things that you can, just in terms of making sure that everything that has been reported on you is accurate. If it's inaccurate, have it corrected. You can utilize services out there that will do this for you. Of course, just making sure that anything that is in collections is, either settled or paid off, or you've been put on some sort of payment plan. And so make sure that your outstanding debts are addressed. If you have unfiled taxes or tax liens, get on the payment plan or try to work out an offer and compromise. Those are just a few things that are going to be important. Mostly, if a commercial lender is going to take a look at your personal credit, and again, that's not really what we're discussing here today, but they will just want to see that regardless of your credit score, some of them may have minimum thresholds, but regardless of your credit score, it's whether or not you are current on your bills, meaning if you don't have monthly debt obligations that are behind, reporting late, or in collections.
I think this next question fits in line with what you just mentioned, but I will cover it. I'll mention it regardless. So what if you've been paying your office rent on time? Can that be reported to your credit, your business credit profile?
Generally speaking, landlords do not report to Dun & Bradstreet, okay? Or they don't report to any credit reporting agency, period. However, the flip side of that is if you don't pay them, they will sue you, of course, and that will show up as a matter of public record.
Why is a home-based business address not good for credit?
Sure. So a home-based business, generally speaking, carries from an underwriting lens more risk. And when we speak of more risk, we're talking about the ability of a business to repay. I know that in certain industries, people have very robust companies with high revenues, and they do very well for themselves. However, when you're talking about commercial lenders and underwriters, we're looking at a portfolio, a spread of loans, not just yours. It's nothing personal to you per se. It's just a matter of what they would like included within their loan or their portfolio, with special consideration given to their credit policy, which is what is established at each lending institution to ensure that they are making good loans with a high possibility of being repaid.
The next question, what if you have a child care business in your home? Should you still obtain a virtual address?
For the purposes of building business credit, yes, okay? Here's the thing. This is a matter of, you want to be truthful on your applications. So we don't want to mislead anyone per se. You can establish a separate address for your company, and that's merely for perception. Okay, that's for the purposes of perception. You do not want to indicate, however, that is where you conduct your business's operations. Okay, and of course, if questions are asked, you do want to make that clarification known. However, it's not that, of course, you will be declined wherever you apply for commercial credit just because you are a home-based business. It's not an automatic decline. What happens is they have special buckets that for you to go into. So lending in your particular situation, depending on your industry, depending on whether or not you're home-based, may be more restrictive. So you may have a smaller amount of a smaller credit limit. You may have a smaller term to repay the funds. It's just a a matter of risk that's assigned to your particular profile if you have a home-based business. Go ahead. Are we good there?
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. The next question is having a Google phone number creditable?
No. You generally want to go with a phone service provider, you know, like your, not that I'm endorsing anyone, but those whom you have to register the business and register with the E911 services, you know, your Ring Centrals, like I mentioned before, your Line 2s and those voice over IP services and softwares out there that make you register that particular company, address, et cetera, et cetera.
The next question says, what if your fax number is the same as your 1877 number regarding credibility?
And also, let me kind of go back here with the Google number, because this is something that comes up often. It depends on how thorough the check is going to be. I think that for the extra, you know, 20 or 30 bucks a month, it's just worth it not to have to go through the hassle. However, if everything else shows up correct, if that number's on your website, if that number's on your claimed Google listing, your claimed Bing listing, if that number shows everywhere, then of course, you know, it's kind of up in the air, but generally speaking, in terms of what will be on file for 411 and your Yellow Page profile, it's going to be something registered with a phone company per se. And I'm not sure that Google utilizes the same registration pathways as, say, some of your more mainline phone companies set up specifically to provide phone services. What was the most recent question, Russell? I wanted to go back there.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So what if your fax number is the same as your 1877 number with regard to creditability?
So I think that they are using the same phone number and fax. I think that's.
Yeah, I think that's what the premise is, yeah.
Okay, the same thing for voice and fax. You'll have to choose one or the other. If it is a phone and fax line, I think whoever you go with in terms of paying for that service, you can easily just set up another line for your fax.
All right, and then it says if you have a business credit card and the limit is $2,000, but your balance is $1,500, I'm not sure. I think they were responding to something you're talking about, but I'm not sure. Does that sound familiar in terms of what you were speaking to at the time?
Not sure. So they're asking if their business credit limit is $2,000 and they have a balance of $1,500.
1,500, yeah.
1,500. I'm not sure.
You might have to ask that question again if you're not familiar with what they're talking about. Yeah,
they can provide some clarification for us.
Yeah, if you want to add that question again, if you need some clarification, we'll be more than happy to answer it. Let me see here. We got two more, and then I think we can move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, if a business used a business credit card to pay recurring expenses such as rent, phone on the business credit card, would that help to build it quicker?
Business credit card. So simply put, you want to use so in terms of building credit, and we're using a credit card specifically, you want to show that you have an outstanding debt on a business credit card, which is different than, say, your trade line, okay, or a store, a supplier line. You don't really get any points for not having anything outstanding. The points come into play when you show that you can have debt and make payments on a timely basis repeatedly. And so if you have a $2,000 credit card and you owe $200, it is best that you carry a balance and pay on that balance each month to show that you're responsible in taking out debt and making payments on that debt over a prolonged period of time.
All righty. There's another question here. They were responding, I think, in real time. So I don't know if you'll remember what you were talking about, but this says, What about co-working office spaces? I've registered my business in Maryland, but I conduct my business at a co-working space in DC. I'm not sure what they're referring to.
One more time for me.
Says, what about co-working office spaces? They
Mm-hmm.
register their business in Maryland, but they conduct their business at a co-working space in DC.
That's totally fine. Totally fine.
Okay.
Yep. That's actually a great example of how to utilize your an address separate from your home, okay, and where that's going to show and reflect good for you in terms of your credit profile for the business being separated from your personal. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's there's some other ones, but I think you mentioned that you'll cover that in some of the rest of the presentation. If not, we can go back to them and we'll ask again
Okay.
as you wrap up to the end of the presentation.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so guys,
Yes.
Still with me here. I want to do just a quick polling. I have a question here. Of those of us who are out here on the call, have you ever obtained credit solely in the name of your business, okay, without listing your social security number on the application? All right. Now, the reason that I'm going to ask this is because I want to make sure that we understand where we are, whether or not we're trying to grow or whether or not we're trying to establish something that's brand new. So if you can just select that answer for me, yes or no, I want to pay close attention to how I present this next round of information, because this is going to be very crucial. I promise you're going to love it. Get your pens out. This is the secret sauce. All right, we'll give this another 10 or 15 seconds. All right, so we have some folks here who have obtained credit solely in the name of their business. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, and the majority of us have not. Okay, totally fine, perfect. So for those of us who have obtained business within our personal credit, in our business's name, without utilizing our social security number, then of course, that's wonderful. And if we have not, we're gonna show you how to do that. But of course, if you have and you're wondering, hey, where am I? How can I make sure that, I grow the relationship and get better and better and obtain larger credit limits or more accounts? Here's the way that we're going to do it. Okay. All right. Coming right up here. All right. And as we can see, about 86% of us have not, and about 14% have not. I have already. Okay. All right, good. Let's go.
One quick jump. Let me jump in real quick here, just real quick. We're getting the question again, which is fine because I know some folks were able to join in, not at the beginning. This presentation is being recorded and it can and will be available via request. So yes, just to answer some of the questions that have been coming in, if you were joining in late and you're finding information of benefit, more than likely at your leisure or when it allows in your schedule, feel free to send either myself or Lou an email. We'll provide that contact information at the end to send us a request, and we can send the presentation to you. So I just wanted to share that real quickly because folks are still asking about that.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Okay, all right. Pay close attention here as we go through these couple of other finer points in terms of how to develop and shape and build out that image of your company in the lender or your creditor or your potential business partner, joint venture partner's eyes. We want to make sure we understand how proper documentation works and what people are using to judge you and judge your company. Okay, very quickly, with your business banking history, as far as anyone is concerned, it doesn't matter if you opened that business eons ago. Nothing matters except the date that you started to transact in that business's name. That's it. Okay. If you were commingling before using your personal account, using Cash App or PayPal, whatever it was, if it was going to your personal account and not specifically to that business banking account, As far as anyone's concerned, it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, if it's even mentioned, it will speak to some sort of negligence or inability to proper segment how you or how you've operationalized your business thus far, okay? So if you don't have a business banking account open it right away. And if you do have your business banking accounts open, of course, always make sure you're not commingling and make sure that the accounts are open and operational and showing all of your revenue, all of your deposits. Many of us, of course, depending upon the credit product we're looking for, it's based on your gross revenues, your annual sales. But of course, if you take cash or you are collecting payment by some other means and it doesn't hit the bank account, though you may think that you're avoiding taxes, the reality is you could be shooting yourself in the foot because it makes it look as if you don't make enough money. Especially if you're looking for a large credit request, they're going to think you wouldn't be able to afford it because you don't show the means or the ability to repay. Okay? All right. Here we go. All right, so we're talking about your bank rating here, making sure that you keep a high banking balance is going to be crucial. And what we mean by that is the average balance in your bank account, okay? For certain creditors, they will want to see the bank account for your business, okay? And what's important, what they're looking for, there are a couple of data points here. What are your average deposits, okay? Your average revenues, and we don't count transfers from other accounts. If you are transferring in and out from different accounts, make sure those are, transferring from another account rather, and it shows as a deposit. Make sure those are accounts in that business's name, okay? Spelled the exact same way, the exact same DBA. If they are personal accounts, it can cause a problem for you, or it just may be a situation where you have to show that documentation to clear up anything that is taking place. Now, of course, if you are paying yourself from your business account, something totally different, okay? If you're sending money from your personal account into your business bank account, or if you're receiving any other transfers into that business account from a bank account that is not in your business's name, those deposits will have to be backed out and they will not be included as part of your revenue or your annual sales figure or your monthly sales figure, however it's being calculated. All right. Additionally, with regard to licensing, depending on your industry, it will be searched whether or not within that specific state or county or city, you are required to have a license, okay? Of course, we know within the last 10 years or so, the basic business license in Washington, D.C. has become ever more crucial and important, okay? Lenders, creditors, they will take a look at whether or not your state requires you to be licensed within your particular industry. They will search to see that you are, and if you're not, sometimes it's an automatic decline, okay? And many times, depending on the organization, either they will not consider your application again, or you must wait 3, 6, 9, or 12 months before you can reapply, okay? By not being properly licensed when you apply, is one of the worst things that you can do because it shows that you've been operating illegally, okay? Now, one other thing to add in there with regard to operating legally, if you have, let's say, fees or filings that have, if you're shown to be not active or shown that if we look at on the corporate registry, the Secretary of State, that your company is behind or not active or anything negative, again, that's almost akin to not being licensed, and it will cause an automatic decline most places. However, it's usually very, very simple. It's usually a fee, a couple $100 that you just neglected to pay. So make sure that you keep up with those. And as a matter of fact, if your particular state or county or jurisdiction doesn't notify you properly, if they're using snail mail and not sending you emails, then set a reminder for yourself in your phone. Place it on your calendar to know when you must go in to file for your company in your state, okay? All right, we've talked about this just in terms of your business listings. For the state, the IRS Bank 401, everything has to have the exact legal name, okay? Also make sure that is on your bills, all right? Certain phone companies or cable companies will report for you're not making timely payments, okay? It just depends on who they are, and Comcast, Verizon, make sure that everything shows up correctly for you. Most don't, but some do. Just make sure that, of course, everything shows up correctly for you in case they do, and make sure you pay them on time if you find out that they do, because you don't want that negative feedback sitting out there about your business. Okay. Now, with regard to business credit reports, they are offered by Experian, Dun & Bradstreet, and Equifax. The most important of these two are Experian and Dun & Bradstreet, okay? Equifax, though still important, it is reported there. However, Experian has the lion's share in terms of the products that are offered to run your credit and your business credit with lenders. And Dun & Bradstreet is open to everyone, including your lender. So generally speaking, they will check both profiles, okay? All right, now with Experian, there's a product out there that I want all of you to check out. Keep a note of this, okay? It's your Smart Business Report. You can go to smartbusinessreports.com, okay? Between 50 to 100 bucks. Find out how many trade lines are reporting on you, okay? And it's okay for you if you have suppliers that you normally order from in cash. If you can call them up, say, hey, do you guys report to Dun & Bradstreet? Do you guys report to Experian or Equifax? Because if so, I'd like to know. And of course, those are folks who, and we'll talk about who to target in terms of your initial trade lines here. But you want to find out where you're listed right now, what your business credit score is, okay? And whether or not you have an active profile at all out there. And if you don't, that's okay. We're going to build that and show you how to do that today. All right, now, if you're looking at Equifax, I want you to go out and purchase a copy of your small business credit report. Okay, here's a link there. If you simply go to Equifax.com, in the top, you'll be able to pull down for small business credit, okay? And you'll see that it typically takes more time to create a file with Equifax small business than Dun & Bradstreet. When you see D&B, the acronym, we're simply talking about Dun & Bradstreet or Experian, okay? It's important to know what's on file with everyone here, okay? But again, Experian, Dun & Bradstreet, the most important. However, if you want to order your full report from Equifax, $100, okay? All right, now for the all-important D&B, okay, you want to make sure you have your DUNS number. And I think we had a question about that, Rasul. Your DUNS number is vitally important, okay? In order for you to get that DUNS number, I want you to contact Dun & Bradstreet, okay, or go online, have your DUNS number assigned. You have to get it, okay? And of course, for those of us who are in government contracting or B2G, or even B2B sometimes, business to business or business to government, we have to have a DUNS number before we can either even apply to do business with the government or other companies out there. So you've had to do this already. However, if you don't have a DUNS number, please go and do this today or sometimes in the very, very near future, okay? Now, you can get your DUNS number, okay? And you can also pay for their credit monitoring service at D&B, but of course, there's a cost to that. And some of the DUNS products, they vary. They vary, but you can talk with a specialist there, and they may go on up to about $2,000, possibly more, just depending upon what you need and what you want to do. Okay. Now, if you want simply to have the self-monitoring service, DNBI self-monitor, you can pay for that service. It costs 40 to 100 bucks per month. However, not that that's especially needed. You just want to make sure that you know what's on file with each agency. Okay, now, the first step in the process will be obtaining your vendor accounts, all right? A business credit report can be started much in the same as a consumer report commonly is started. And so what I want you to do is we're going to take a look at which vendor accounts and where you should apply, okay? These will be very, very small cards, very small accounts with very small limits, but they will allow for you to accumulate the points, the reported relationships, so that you can score well when we start going for the larger products, okay? And remember, it takes some time for you to apply, to be approved, to have your account, to actually utilize the account, and then have that payment history to be reported to the credit bureaus, okay? So keep that in mind. You wanna make sure that you apply, they will be small, and use them so that depending upon how the card or the account is structured, the reporting hits the credit bureau so that you can accumulate the points and the open trade line minimums that you need in order to apply for your bigger and better products. Okay, now with vendor accounts, a vendor line. So let's say some of you may order paper products or chemicals or cleaning products, et cetera, et cetera. All right, a vendor line of credit is when a company or vendor extends a line of credit to your business, net 15, 30, 60, or 90-day terms. Okay, now, what does this mean? It simply means that you don't have to pay for the products immediately upon ordering them. However, you must pay it prior to that net day. So net 15 means you must pay for those items before the 15th day after which you ordered them, okay? Or the same for 30, 60, and 90, okay? So make sure that you understand which accounts you have. If they're net 15, 30, or 60, keep track of it and pay them on time so that it can be reported to the credit bureau, okay? Now, keep in mind that each company is not going to have the most robust system in terms of reminding you to pay and et cetera, et cetera. You may receive emails, they may go to your junk email folder, et cetera, et cetera. It's on you to make sure that you pay these items on time. You want to make sure you use them and pay them on time. Let's get into more of the science of it here also, okay?
Hey Lou, just as a quick reminder, this goes to 12:30. We are at 12:27. We do have a couple of questions, so just being mindful of everyone's time. I just wanted to just put that on to share.
We are. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so real starter vendor accounts, okay? I want you to pay attention to, I have about 7 that are listed here. Laughlin and Associates, okay? Quill, Reliable, these are all company names, easily Googleable and searchable. Uline, I'm sure you see those thick booklets they send you in the mail. Summa Office Supplies, Crown Office Supplies, and Granger. These are some starter vendor accounts that can get you started right away. Remember, you'll want to apply without using your social security number, just the information for your business. Now, with that vendor account, remember, apply without your social security number, okay? Some will say they need it, but first try to move forward without it. Now, with that vendor account at these particular institutions, they will report on your Dun & Bradstreet. You will need a DUNS number to apply, okay? And these will start as your first trade lines. Excuse me. Now, with the vendor accounts, you'll want to have at least 5 of them reporting. This will put you in the best position possible to move forward, okay, in order for you to start applying for your bigger and better credit accounts, all right? At least 5 vendor accounts, okay, to move forward and start applying for your bigger and better credit accounts, okay? Now, keep in mind when you start off with your vendor account, you may not be able to immediately order on credit, but of course you may need to pay and then start the relationship with them just so that they can feel as though you're a worthy customer and that there's no funny business going on, okay? Their risk, I understand. Now, with those vendor accounts, make sure you pay them on time, okay? Make sure you allow enough time for you to be, for it to be reported for you, okay? 3 cycles on the net would mean, okay, depending on your particular contract with them, if they're net 30, that's on a monthly basis. If they're net 15, Okay, just making sure that 3 orders, or every time you order on a different cycle, you pay it in full and give that time to report to the credit bureau. Okay, typically that's going to be by the end of the month and will reflect after the 15th of the following month. All right, vendor accounts. Most merchants and most major retailers do offer business credit. They don't advertise it. So make sure that whoever you deal with, whoever you buy from, make sure you ask. Be proactive and ask about it, okay? And make sure that when you do apply, again, try to apply without your social security number first and use only your EIN, okay? But you have to be proactive and go after the product yourself. If it's something other than what we mentioned here today, just make sure that whoever you do deal with, you ask whether or not they report to the credit bureaus and to Dun & Bradstreet. All right. Now, your revolving accounts. All right. These are your credit cards. These are some of your bigger and better accounts that are going to allow for you to grow, expand, and kind of move into your larger products here. After you have 5 trade lines, okay, using vendor accounts, those that we just discussed, we want to make sure that you're obtaining revolving accounts as the next step. Now, revolving accounts are just credit cards, Visa, Amex, MasterCard that you can use where you're not required to pay the balance in full, okay? And so this is what we're talking about. There's a difference between the trade lines or the vendor accounts and your credit cards. If you want to make sure you are establishing your score or raising your score, for those of us who have the cards already but you're not using them, carry a small balance. Make sure you pay that balance in a timely manner each and every month. Again, credit is established by showing that you can maintain and have debt and pay on that debt. It really doesn't serve you best if you have the credit cards but you're not using them, because you're not demonstrating the ability to have outstanding debt and make timely payments, okay? All right, revolving account approvals will begin coming in from the stores first, okay? So if you're on Amazon, I think Amazon's a great place to start. Most of us order from Amazon. They offer a Visa, MasterCard, a Visa card rather. You can also take a look at some of your other online retailers out there, and you can also take a look at just the basic offerings, even Bankrate. You can take a look at, what's out there and what may be applicable to your business after you have at least 5 trade lines or vendor accounts established. Okay. Now, in most cases, it's not worth your time applying unless you've gone through the process of having the vendor accounts first and in place. Okay. Also, if of course they do require you to place your personal or information on file, you want to be very clear in understanding how that particular card is reported to the credit bureaus, and making sure that this particular card will show up with Experian, Dun & Bradstreet, and Equifax. Okay. I know we're running over time a bit here, Rasul. I want to get through this portion here, so if we can kind of hang in there. We're gonna
no problem.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Vendor accounts must be used first. Okay. I want to stress that. Do not try to jump to your credit cards and business credit cards first until you have at least 5 vendor credit lines or trade lines established. Give yourself at least about 3 months. Okay. And I think there was a question asked earlier, how long does it take to build business credit? Just flat out, folks, we're looking at least 6 to 12 months. Okay. You can grab a hold of those trade lines right away. But when you want to start getting to your credit cards where you can grow those relationships and have those credit lines increased, we're looking more at that 6-month figure, that 6-month mark, okay? All right, now, where to go to obtain those first business credit cards, those revolving accounts after we have those trade lines? Here are some great ones for you. Home Depot, Lowe's, Office Depot, Staples, Best Buy, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, Amazon, we've discussed before, Dell, Apple, okay? Even your gas stations, BP, Chevron, Racetrack, and most other gas stations out there. Here's where you want to go to get those initial credit cards after you have your trade lines, okay? The credit limits will be smaller. That's okay, all right? But you will be approved, and you will be approved in the business's name, and that's what's important, because now, in addition to those trade lines, we're going to have credit accounts, credit cards that are reporting on that business credit profile. All right, heating up. So once you have 10 total accounts on your credit, an owner can then start applying for the Visa, MasterCard, and Amex credit cards, okay? Solely, without them being store cards, okay? Or some sort of branded cards. Let's make that distinction, okay? What we're talking about here are your store cards, okay? Specific to an institution or an entity, that particular company. And as we move forward, so we have five trade lines from vendor accounts. Let's grab a hold of another 5 cards with these stores, okay? They're listed here before you. And now once we have 10 of those, here's where you're able to make a move for the larger accounts with Visa, MasterCard, and Amex. At Home Depot and Lowe's, you're gonna have a credit limit that is going to be capped most often, okay? $4,000 or $5,000, you know, depending upon what you're doing there. It's not really gonna go that high. However, you're not gonna start off that high either. But once you get to your Visa, MasterCard, and Amex credit cards that are not store cards, here's where you're gonna be able to really make a move, okay? And increase those credit limits where you're gonna have the cards at $7,000, $10,000, $15,000, and $20,000, okay? And we all know how useful those can be, all right? Now, the approval limits will be equivalent to the highest credit limit account on the business report, starting off. So wherever you're able to get those initial store cards, make sure that we try to get them as high as we can, because once we move over into Visa, MasterCard, American Express, those cards, that's where they're gonna use that number as the benchmark to say, well, they can only handle credit up to this amount. This is what we'll be able to offer them. Okay, so at the end of the day, you want to try to have 10 accounts with at least one of them having a $10,000 high credit limit. Okay, now it's essential to keep using the credit, keep applying for more, and talk with the credit providers to raise your credit limits. It just simply takes a conversation to call in. They'll ask you about business, how are things going? You'll let them know and keep raising those limits. Okay. And I'm going to show you why and how this comes in handy coming up shortly, okay? And again, this is not a long process, okay? But by this time next year, you can be in a position where you have access to over $100,000 to $200,000 in business credit, okay? Now, let's talk, because I want to answer some questions here coming up, okay? The end goal here is that when anyone takes a look at your credit or your personal credit, that you are a stellar. Now, your business credit will give you twice the buying power, twice the access to credit if we include your personal. And that's really the point. If you go for a business loan, if you're being checked out by someone that wants to do business with you, a lot of times we never know. For Dun & Bradstreet, that's a public profile. Anyone can look up your D&B profile. Okay, all they need is your company name and your address, okay? If you have someone that's looking to perform a service for you and you're getting a great price from them, but they may be starting out, they may have to use a product to factor the invoices, okay? And if you don't have good business credit, they can't get a creditor to work with them to help fund their services to you. So for example, if I own ABC cleaning company and I want to do business with XYZ office building and perform maintenance on their building to the tune of $20,000 a month, it's a great contract for me. But I know that I can't carry the $20,000 payroll and cost of equipment and supplies for, you know, the 1 to 2 months before I'm able to get paid by the office building. Well, if I have an invoice factorer, a company who's going to work with me and pay me advance money up front to invoice you, they're going to check you out because they want to make sure that you, the office building, are going to pay me. And what they're checking out is your DNB, your Dun & Bradstreet profile, to make sure that you are a worthy credit risk, that if I do business with you, that you're going to, in fact, pay me so I can pay them back, okay? And so your business credit is for more than just applying for a loan, applying for a credit line, applying for a vendor account. It's really just so that you can form relationships, you can bring on investors, partners, and get access to capital, okay? So with all that said, hopefully that was some really good information for you today. Let's open up the floor for questions. I know we're pressed for time, but Rasul, if you can go ahead, let's go ahead and try to knock these out.
Yeah, we got about 6 questions here. The first one is, what's the best time for a small business to establish business credit?
I think you should start right away, okay? But I want you to pay close attention to how you start. So some people start and they are moving right into business. They have experience in the industry, and they're going to start off grabbing a hold of some dollars and generating some revenue. You want to start as soon as you are generating revenue. That will indicate that you are a real business, and it will also help you in terms of, not just performing an exercise in vain, but rather you have a real company on your hands that's making money and a credit profile that you're going to need for this real entity that you're building.
Next question, Dun & Bradstreet can be a bit costly. Are there any other services that are geared towards smaller businesses?
Well, Dun & Bradstreet is a beast unto itself. So just in terms of the sheer power and the market share of Dun & Bradstreet, they are the go-to, and that's where creditors go to. So you kind of are stuck with them right now because you want to make sure that profile out of all of the others is able to kind of service your needs, and what's on that report. Now, if you're talking about the monthly fee that's required, I'm not sure if they're referring to the monthly fee or just paying for the report itself, but I don't think that you necessarily need the monthly Dun & Bradstreet service. However, I do think that it's important for you to get your report, which is a one-time fee, to figure out what exactly is being reported for you in terms of credit accounts, trade lines, any late pays, et cetera, et cetera.
There's another question. Transfers from businesses, PayPal or Square or any payment app for online transactions to your bank account acceptable?
Are they acceptable?
Yeah, I think that might have been referring to an earlier piece of the presentation talking about. I don't know if it's ringing.
Yeah. So without the context of the question, if they could provide some clarification, that'd be great.
Got it. Okay, no worries. We'll move to the next one. If you're denied business credit with a smaller account such as Costco, but you have a personal account with Costco. Let's see here. Yeah, it's not clear. We might have to go to the next question on that one.
Well, I think
are you able to get the gist of it?
Yeah, so typically before you go to Costco, you want to make sure you apply with the vendor accounts first, okay? And so there's a step-by-step process here in terms of your vendor accounts, okay? And your store cards, and then your major credit cards, okay? So before you even apply for somewhere like Costco or Lowe's or Home Depot, you want to apply with your, Ulines, your Grangers, your business supply companies. Those are where you want to go first. And so, I want to make sure people pay attention to the proper steps to take, because it's a process, and you have to go step by step instead of jumping ahead of step rather.
Let's see. So I have a business Amex that does not show my personal or business credit for years. Is it a true business card?
So your Amex, now, is that question referring to an Amex in their business's name?
It doesn't say, it just says I have a business Amex that does not show on my personal or business credit. It has shown for years. It says, is it still a true business card?
If that Amex is in your business's name, that is a business credit card. I'm not sure about why it's not showing exactly. However, and I'm assuming that this person has ordered their Dun & Bradstreet report or Experian, but make sure that the card is still active and make sure that you are using the card, that you're carrying some small balance there where you're making monthly timely payments.
All right, the next question, are any of the cell phone companies considered viable vendor accounts?
So it depends on the cell phone company, and you will want to check with them prior, okay? I think that your Verizon may report. As for your others, I'm not too sure about that. So you want to check with your cell phone company, you want to check with your current suppliers, you want to check with those. If you take a look at your bank statement and take a look at who you do business with, where you are buying, check with those particular vendors, those suppliers, those manufacturers, to be sure that they are reporting with the credit bureaus. And if they're not, I mean, it's good to know, but if they are, be very, very diligent about paying them on time. And additionally, you want to make sure that when you have a lack of reporting accounts, that you make up for the difference by starting out with those trade lines.
Next question, how many vendor accounts should you have at once? Is it reporting soft or hard when obtaining vendor accounts?
So for the vendor accounts, I think that you need to have at least 5. That's what the numbers say. In the industry, and this is a whole industry, you know, folks, just in terms of being able to build this out for you. I mentioned at the very beginning of the call, this actually saves you about $4,000. Okay, this is a service that others perform for you out there. And if you don't pay up front, sometimes they will perform this service for you, but then you have to pay them 8 or 9% of whatever you're approved for. And they really just take you through the same steps that I've taken you through here. So just going back to these starter vendor accounts, utilizing the 7 listed companies here, these are where you want to pick up these vendor accounts, and you want to have at least 5 of them, okay, prior to going for your store credit cards, okay, after you have those vendor accounts.
How will lenders know when I open a business banking account if it is a new account?
Yep, so there are various services. So a couple of things here. Number one, on your business bank statement, depending on your bank, it will indicate when that account was opened, okay? Additionally, the relationships themselves, there are certain databases that lenders use to cross-reference owners with companies. LexisNexis is one of them, where we can see exactly where you have relationships and where those relationships were started, okay? But generally speaking, most lenders or creditors will want to see that your account has been opened, and you know, depending on the product, they may want to see that it's been open for at least a year. In very, very rare cases, 6 months. But the way in which they can tell, of course, will be on the statement itself or through a database such as LexisNexis.
And just a quick piece of an apology. Some of these questions were asked in real time with no context, so not sure how to address those. So any apologies if we don't get to some of the questions that you have asked. From the audience side. And one thing I think as we wrap this up, Lou will probably share some information if folks want to do follow-up. Once again, we will be sending out the presentation at request. And then also, I think there's going to be some opportunity for business advisory on a one-on-one, and Lou can talk about that as we begin to wrap up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We got about 3 or 4 questions left. Okay. The next one is in the healthcare field. How do I find healthcare vendor accounts that will be counted?
So generally speaking, This isn't field specific. If you have, there are only, I'm going to say about 10 or so real vendor or starter vendor accounts out there where this process is pretty seamless, and we've named those here for you. Okay. Even if you're in healthcare, you may still need office supplies. You may still need to be supplied with just those basic things that every office needs. And so this really isn't something that we're looking to cater to a particular industry, but rather we're catering to your credit profile. And so I don't want you to think of this in terms of, hey, well, if I'm in this industry, then I can't do it like this or that. But your particular suppliers, you would have to call them and see if they offer vendor accounts, if they offer those types of relationships that will establish a trade line and be reported to Experian, Dun & Bradstreet, or Equifax. So it's going to take a little work on your part in terms of knowing who you do business with and asking those questions. If you don't want to go through that, no problem. All you need to do is reach out to the vendors that we have listed here, and they will be able to move forward with you in terms of establishing a trade line with them.
All right, next question. I accept treatment payments via business PayPal, invoice, and transfer to my business account. Is that viewed as an acceptable revenue stream into a business account?
Yes, it is. Okay, I think that was a follow-up from a question earlier.
I think so.
Okay, yeah, that definitely is, just as long, of course, as you are, that processing account that you're using to accept those payments is also in the name of the business, so that if there are any questions asked and they want some sort of report from PayPal, or whomever you process with, that they are accepting those payments in the company's name and it's being transferred into the bank account in the company's name. What I don't want you to do is to accept or process payments in your personal name via PayPal and then transfer or have the settlement account linked to your business's name.
Okay, I think you might have covered this one earlier, but just in case for review, the individual wants to know if they can improve their, like you can improve your personal credit, can you improve your business credit with Dun & Bradstreet?
Yes, you can. And the way in which you'll want to do that with Dun & Bradstreet is simply to have more accounts, okay? So the mix, of course, will come from how many accounts you have on file and your payment history. So if you have a current D&B score and you have some credit accounts out there, open up a few more vendor accounts, okay? And I'm not sure where they are at this point in time in terms of their business credit profile, but make sure you have at least 5 vendor accounts, and make sure you can move over into having some of your store credit cards so that you can move on and have a more quality credit products with higher limits, which will increase your score.
All right, we have 2 more questions, and then we will have the Q&A wrapped up.
Okay.
The next question, do you recommend NAV, N-A-V? Do you know it? Is that familiar to you, Lou?
NAV, N-A-V. They'd have to, if they can spell that out for me.
Okay, so we'll see if they can respond if they're still on the call. The next one is if ever, when should you cancel your vendor accounts?
Well, I don't really have an answer for when you should cancel. You can choose to cancel them after you have your larger, more advantageous credit line products out there, because of course, once you have them and they're secure, then great. However, know that canceling them will hurt your credit profile. Okay, so unless there's just a need to, you know, if there's been some sort of fraud or you disagree with the company's policies, or if they have changed the terms of your account and you no longer need it, then I would say to go ahead and cancel it. Otherwise, I would leave it open as long as it's safe and secure.
That was the last question, Lou. If you want to do a sort of summary and wrap up, we are about 6 minutes before our 1 o'clock hour.
Okay, so hey, I want to thank everyone out there for joining with us today. I think that we've covered some really great information here just in terms of the very, very simple steps to take in order for you to build out your business credit profile. Remember, you can do this yourself. You can easily go ahead and get this completed and be off and running within 6 to 12 months, okay? And you can have access to $100,000 to $200,000 in business credit if you are, of course, moving along with the steps that I've outlined here for you. Again, start with your vendor accounts, move on to your store credit cards. Of course, after you have 5 vendor accounts, get 5 store credit cards, then start applying for your Visa, MasterCard, or American Express credit cards. And so at that point, you will be in a very, very good position. So, of course, I'd love to, just make sure that everyone has, all of their questions answered. Hopefully I've done a great job in terms of answering your questions and delivering the information today. And that's about it. Okay.
All right. I am typing both mine and Lou's emails in the chat because we've had a number of folks who are interested in getting a recorded copy of the presentation. We request that if you are interested in getting access to this, just send us an email and we will be more than happy to send that to you. We should have the list from the signups, but just in case, we also request and ask that you just send us, either one of us or both of us, an email. That way we have all bases covered. And once again, we'll be more than happy to send the copy of this to all of you who found it valuable.
Okay. Yep. So, hey guys, thank you again for reaching out and for joining with us today. Take a look at the information. You should see the emails in the chat as of right now. And so hopefully you've enjoyed what Wacif has brought to you today. And I thank you for your time. Okay. And I see one that says he just does not see the emails.
Yeah, I'm typing it right now.
Okay. All right. So, yep, those it should show for all. Let's see.
Yeah, I just sent it right now.
Okay. All panelists and attendees. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, folks, that's it. See y'all later on.